Greetings, it is I, Tantus Naravan Dracovin, Lord and Emperor of the Dracovin Empire, and welcome. It is time to continue my expose on the lands, legends, planes, and planeswalkers of Magic the Gathering, where I take one of these different topics and introduce you to some of the world settings of Magic the Gathering through them, much more than just the history of these sets. Today I'm going to introduce you to a new land, Urborg and Dominaria, this important land that has an interesting history. Now, Urborg is also known as the Tomb of Yawgmoth. It is a tropical island that is a marshland. It is one of the most prominent of the Burning Isles, the island chain just north of Jamora. It is also known to have one of the highest concentrations of black mana in all of Dominaria, of all of the plane. Witches and necromancers and other forms of undead constantly vie for control of the island itself. And the island is known to have a great number of important characters to the history of Dominaria and Magic having appeared there. Now, there are some notable locations that I want to talk about when I'm talking about Urborg. First off is the city of Urborg. The city of Urborg was ruled over by the Lich Lord Nevinneral. Now, Nevinneral eventually, though, left the city, especially when because it was known to be in this volcano, and it began to sink into the volcano effectively towards the end of its time period, and during this time it was then abandoned and effectively destroyed. And so the city of Urborg has been lost to history, and its exact location is now unknown. Now, the Windgrace estate was home to the family that was where Krovax, the one that was part of the Weatherlight crew and eventually became Avankar of Wrath, was from. Now, as of now, it is abandoned and effectively in ruins, but this estate actually does mark another location close by. Fairlease settled the Martyr's Tomb nearby as a memorabilia to all those that died during the Phyrexian invasion. It includes busts of both Urza and Gerald, marking their as great heroes that helped defeat Phyrexia during this time period, the time period of the invasion. Now, the stronghold is here. This is the stronghold of Wrath, where the Avankars would rule over, and when the overlay of Wrath occurred upon Dominaria, the stronghold appeared in the middle of a volcano within Urborg. Now, it was actually covered over by magma by a number of dwarfs that used their abilities to effectively encase it in that. And now the ruins of the stronghold do remain still to this day within Urborg, and they are actually oftentimes referred to as the Tomb of Yawgmoth. The entire island is technically referred to that, but as that is the center of the tomb, a mark of Phyrexian's attempted invasion that still remains to this day. Now, and also an after effect of the invasion is there is a portion of the forest of Yavimaya that was overlaid, that was transported effectively to Urborg. Multani, the powerful protector of Yavimaya, transported part of it in order to bring an army, basically to the last battle of the Phyrexian invasion, bringing it to Urborg, and that forest actually remains to this day. Now, the underground necropolis of Velnish, it was also within here. This was the seat of power for the Lich Lord Dralnu, and it existed as a powerful city that he effectively took over from his creator, and turned from just a place where undead were stored to an actual city of the undead. Now, upon Dralnu's death, signs of Velnish have actually disappeared, and it is unknown what existence it has now. It's basically been lost to the ages, deep underground, now that their lord is dead. Again. Now, there is one remaining area that I do want to talk about. There was a massive forested region that was under the care of the Windgrace estate, basically Krovax's family. It has been said, though unconfirmed completely, that the forest itself was close enough to the Yavimayan forest, that part of it that appeared on Urborg, and the two of them have actually merged together to form a new Urborgian forest that combines the two aspects of both of these. Now, when we talk about the history of Urborg, it dates back all the way to the Brothers' War. Before the Brothers' War, it was a vast jungle, and when Urza used the Golgarian Silex to basically end the Brothers' War, the result of it was the island partially sunk, and many of the areas became marshlands. It is during this time that Lord Windgrace, the Planeswalker and Panther Warrior, was born, and he became an important figure for all of Urborg, which I will talk about a little more later. Now, during this time, of course, the city of Urborg existed, and it was before the Ice Age that it actually fell. It went to war with Bogardan, and in the course of the war, the basic city was forced to be sinking into the volcano, which was known to be its defeat. As it was being finally entombed in there, Nevinneral activated his disc. Effectively, he decided that since his city was destroyed and buried in magma, in lava, then the only way to prevent its magical secrets from possibly being uncovered is to destroy it completely. And upon activating the Nevinneral's disc, it destroyed all evidence of the city. So the actual location of the city within Urborg is completely unknown to this day, and though many might claim it's within their territories, it's unusual to find out where it exactly is. Now, Urborg was the first location to fall to the Phyrexians during their invasion. Also during the invasion, it had the two major overlays, of course the Stronghold of Wrath and the portion of the Yavimaya Forest. In that final battle against the Phyrexians, it in fact is where, over top of Urborg, Yawgmoth was finally defeated, so it was above this land that he was killed. Hence why it is often referred to as his tomb. Now, when we come to the time of the Time Rifts, a Time Rift was above Urborg too. It actually was located above the stronghold, the ruins of the Stronghold from Wrath. It was during this time period that Lord Windgrace actually gave up his life. He sacrificed his magical energies, basically preventing, through this Time Rifts, an army of Phyrexians from returning from the past to invade Urborg once again. So he gave up his life, but it is said that his spirit transcended that and now protects over Urborg. Now we move on to what would be referred to as the modern day of it in the timeline of what has been shown of Dominaria. Unfortunately for Urborg, it has become more corrupt and more disgusting and sludge-like over the years. A lot of those Phyrexian abominations that died back during the war have seeped into the ground over all this time period, over these hundreds and hundreds of years. And many of the bogs that are in Urborg have actually changed into glistening oil now, the corruption of Phyrexia. So there's this taint of Phyrexia still upon the land of Urborg, even to this day. Now, before the Phyrexian invasion, effectively Urborg was ruled over by several warring factions that competed for each other for control. Each of these factions claimed that either they were directly descended from a lieutenant of Nevinneral or they themselves was a lieutenant of Nevinneral. And they effectively also claimed that the city of Urborg was within their borders. Basically, they carved out chunks of this island into their own territories and battled it out with each other. Now, the races that lived in here were, of course, humans, undead lords, and panther warriors. But also making up this territory was other types of undead. There are elves that lived in Urborg, and drakes. Krovax's family, the Windgraces, are actually one of those factions that was vying for control over Urborg. Now, it is important to note that the Windgraces, it's unknown if they actually are related to Lord Windgrace. He's a cat warrior, they're technically humans, though there has been a lot of generations, and he is a planeswalker. So it's really unsure if they are actually descendants of him, if for whatever reason he granted them their name, and it's never discussed, or they just took up the mantle of him to respect him for whatever reason. It's unknown which of these is accurate, but it is known that they have that same name. Now, the last important group of characters within Urborg I want to mention are the Breathstealers. They were a cult of religious fanatical assassins who showed that their most important time period was during the Mirage War, where they were effectively employed to assassinate some of the major players of the various countries that were within Jamora. They're also known for being able to summon a powerful spirit called the Spirit of the Night. They effectively could give up their lives in order to summon this spirit in order to do battle against their enemies. And it was actually one of the greatest honors they could have to sacrifice them to the Spirit of the Night. Now let's talk about some important figures from Urborg. I've talked about a few of them. I talked about Krovax, the member of the Windgrace family who eventually became the Evankar of Wrath. I talked about Nevinneral, the Lich Lord who had ruled over the city of Urborg. I talked about Draunu, the Lich Lord that ruled over his own terrain. And I did mention Lord Windgrace, the Planeswalker who was one of the 9 Titans during the Phyrexian invasion, survived it, and eventually gave up his life to the Time Rifts. The powerful Panther warrior is said to be older than Urza. But other important figures that are known to be from Urborg are, of course, Croesus the Purger. He is one of the primeval dragons that during the time of the invasion rose from basically their slumber. He arose from a tar pit, and he was known to have the power of death, effectively. The other primeval dragons sacrificed them to raise him, and then he raised them back from the dead. It was during the battles when a few of his kin were killed that he lost his power, and eventually, because he proved himself to be too much of a threat, was re-imprisoned in the tar pit with the help of Captain Sisay and the Weatherlight. Now, he was a very powerful dragon, and again, power over death, so he's an interesting figure that is technically still alive, just sealed. Also, there's Karavak the Merciless. He's a powerful spellcaster that was known to be one of the leaders of a warring faction within Urborg. He wanted to gain control of it, but did not see a point in time where he gained power. During the time period where we led up to the Mirage War, he sensed Teferi's experiment and the magical energies left behind it, and headed to Jamora. Once there, he basically settled himself into some power, and he basically manipulated the forces causing the Mirage War, imprisoning Magnara even in the Amber Prison. So it was his fault that the Mirage War occurred during this time period. Now, Huraj of Urborg, leader of the Panther Warriors, was his staunch ally, an ally of Karavak's. Now, Huraj was said to have sacrificed her soul for the power to be able to kill anything. Basically, it made her very difficult to defeat. And she also led a lot of Karavak's forces within Jamora and took over some of the forests there. She was actually the warden of the Amber Prison, which Magnara was in, and when it was broken open, she disappeared. Now, it's assumed that she did not die during this time, but we haven't heard anything from her, and theoretically, she's virtually immortal with the deal she made. She could have passed away, she could still be alive. It's hard to say. And the last one I want to mention is Venser. Venser is an important figure that helped with fighting against the Time Rifts and sealing them during that time, and was a mage that learned at the Tolarian Academy. He himself eventually found a way to become a Planeswalker in a more unusual way, effectively using some research and magic in a different way to gain his Planeswalker form. And eventually, when the fall of Mirrodin occurred, he was there to help effectively save Karn, giving up his own Planeswalker spark to reignite Karn's and save him from his imprisonment by the Phyrexians. So Venser died being a hero, and he was an Urborgian. Interesting fact there. So that's it for today. I talked all about Urborg, a corrupted land of black mana that there have been many dark and evil figures from. Liches, necromancers, terrible people. But there have been great heroes too. Krovax himself started out as a great person, a great hero, and he fell from grace. But it's shown when we saw the Time Rifts in an alternate timeline, he could have been a great hero too. Krovax Ascendant hero. And instead we saw Venser, the ultimate example of what greatness can come from Urborg, that he himself sacrificed himself to save Karn, and perhaps help stave off the Phyrexians by awakening this powerful Planeswalker spark once again, this Golem Planeswalker. So it is said that Venser might be a cause of some heroics in the multiverse to this day. Regardless, Urborg has a very interesting history, and many places that have corrupted and fallen apart over the ages. And signs of the wars that have been there still remain. So if any questions, comments, anything you say, anything you think I left out, please leave in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe. It's just support the channel, the Empire, the work I do. If you want to show some extra support, you can always check out my Patreon, link in the description below. If you want to check out some more Magic content while mine is off during the week, I can recommend my friends in the multiverse, Card Bazaar, They Said We Said, and Tasty Snacky. But regardless, until the next time, I bid you farewell.